Oh, hello everyone. Greg Staley here from Diverge Media, and thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to start just in a few minutes, but I thought I'd give a recap on the debates last night. If you hadn't had a chance to check out kind of some of what we posted, but kind of a pretty uneventful debate overall. Basically, a whole lot of nothing said. Terrible format, and nobody really debated. It was kind of more of a yelling match, and the moderator a little bit too involved, in my opinion. But nonetheless, let's walk through some of the points that happened. And specifically, I got a video here from the debates that I'm going to pull up and share. Oh, clipped on our page. I thought it'd be a good one to share. Let's pull it up. Here we are from last night's debates. This is Green Party leader Anime Paul talking, or I guess in an altercation with rather Mr. Blanchet from the Bloc Party. It's a 42-second clip. Here we go.
I actually had to pull my jaw up, which just dropped, when I heard what Mr. Blanchet said. I invited Mr. Blanchet to get educated about systemic discrimination. I extend that invitation again. I would be happy to educate him.
It's nice to want to educate
This is my time, sir.
It is.
Thank you.
So nice time to insult people.
That was not an insult. It was an invitation to educate yourself.
This is leader direct questions,
There
Melissa.
should be some
Mr.
decency in this debate. Since I'm many minutes behind everybody else, there should be some
Mr.
decency
Blanchet, you
in
have
the
had
debate.
every opportunity to
It's
jump
your
in an open
responsibility,
debate.
not mine, but some things
And
cannot
I am
be said.
fulfilling my responsibility, sir. Melissa, we're going to keep moving on.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Thank you.
So, I mean, every time I watch it, it gets funnier to me. Oh, that's from the debates last night. Kind of give you a flavor of kind of really what the whole debate format was like, I guess, if you can even call it a debate. But I posted that one. The virtue signaling is strong in the debate. And at the end of the day, there's certain ways to talk to people, certain ways not to talk to people. You know, if he really does need to be educated, I don't think you saying, "I'll educate you," is the way he's going to wake up and listen to that. But I digress. Looks like we're ready to kick off our interview here with Mr. Shino. So I'm going to give a brief introduction. Ronni Shino is an independent candidate for Brampton-Centre. Now, I caught an interview of his on 88.9 FM, and there in Toronto. Thought he carried himself extremely well. And had some interesting thoughts on some of the big picture ideas. So I thought we would invite him onto the show and give him a platform to kind of explain some of those ideas. So everybody, let's welcome Mr. Shino from Brampton-Centre. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm having some technical difficulties over here. We're actually running behind schedule. And can you hear me well?
Yeah, actually coming through.
Okay, we're just running behind schedule here. So I had to set up shop literally on the go. So I can't hear you too well, but I do have the mic set up. So as long as you can hear me, I'll try my best. But if you can, get the question in writing, I'll definitely be able to answer.
Okay. So for writing here, we'll have to get creative here. Let's go banner. Let's start off. Create banner, and we'll pop it in on the screen. And I guess the audience will be able to see that way as well. So let's pull this up. Just a second here, everyone. You got to adapt. You got to adapt. So first question here. Sorry, go ahead.
1 second. Let me see if I can get something fixed here.
Okay. So we're going to add this.
Oh,
Can you see that at the bottom there, Mr. Shino?
One moment.
So
see if I can get this sorted out.
We'll pull you back in just a second here. You just sort yourself out, and
something.
Sounds good. All right. So he's sorting stuff out. Appreciate him taking time. Obviously, this is like crunch time come election. We're 10 days out, I think is the number. And so, not easy to do. Okay, back to kind of the debate if you had missed it. So there's the video of Paul. Interesting how she handled it. But nonetheless, I thought it was maybe not the best way to handle it, but it made for entertainment. Some of the other things that come to mind, the Bloc leader, Blanchette, said that O'Toole said in French that the Conservative Party of Canada would not put a pipeline in Quebec, but then said at the debate that he wanted to hear him say it in English. Well, spoiler alert, he did not say it in English. And so these are kind of some of the things that came up. None of the debt was talked about. Trudeau tried to lecture Mr. O'Toole on principles. And I think that was probably slippery territory, maybe not the best idea to do. But nonetheless, he tried, and it was an interesting interaction, to say the least. Another point that was interesting, Green Party leader Anime Paul said that it seems like that she got better information on her smartphone about Afghanistan than Trudeau appeared to have gotten from the intelligence agency. So, say what you will about the Green Party and their policies. I actually think Miss Paul, or Mrs. Paul, I'm not sure, handled herself really well at the debate, and was pleasantly surprised with some of the interactions. She definitely is a strong woman. So pull back Mr. Shino in here. See. All good? Looks like we're still having a few difficulties. You're just muted there. I'm sorry, gonna hold this. All right, try this again. Sorry, everyone. Sometimes the way it goes when it's live. So back to the debate here a little bit more. O'Toole said all families deserve an economic recovery. This one thing I actually agreed with him on. He said when Canada is removed from the supply chain, and he was referring to oil, I said Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, other countries with less stringent standards fill the gaps. So this is something I talked about with Dan McTagg, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. It would seem to me we have high standards. Why wouldn't we want more built here? Pipelines, these type of things, because oil is not being phased out tomorrow, even if we stop using it. So another thing that was brought up, I thought was another good point to be brought up. Jane Philpott and Judy Wilson-Raybould were brought up frequently by the Green Party leader. Trudeau was asked about sexual misconduct in the military as a feminist, and the Green Party leader says a feminist doesn't continue to push women out of caucus. So I thought that was another really good slam piece. It was pretty funny to watch some of these interactions unfold. And then, there's a few attempts at gotcha journalism, but nothing you wouldn't expect. Trudeau was asked about calling an election during a pandemic, and proceeded to basically do a roundabout nothing political answer. So we're almost all the way through all my takes on the debate. Singh was asked about how he will forward all of the promises in his platform. And I said, I sure hope they ask the Liberals, Greens, and Conservatives the same question. Of course, never really came up. I think that Evan Solomon brought up the debt, and every politician did a complete roundabout non-answer, which was interesting. So, overall, the debates were, you didn't miss much. It wouldn't have been that exciting to do a broadcast party, but it was interesting nonetheless. The one thing brought up, because I seen Rebel had their stream, and I seen they had the Maverick Party leader. I was killing time till the actual event started, and they had the Maverick Party leader on, and I thought it was worth bringing up the fact that, we'll pull it up. The Maverick Party leader, this is a screenshot because I think they've since deleted their response, but basically, this is Maxime Bernier in the comment. What does the Maverick Party think about lockdowns? And so somebody asked, anyone know what the Maverick Party's saying about lockdowns? A lot of Westerners would like to know. They responded, hey, as a federal party, we haven't been inserting ourselves in this debate. We think that the premiers have the most information and are doing the best to navigate the situation. They said, we are focused on creating leverage for the autonomy of Western Canada. So if you needed to know where the Maverick Party stands, I guess, on lockdowns, that was their stance was very, I mean, it's a political non-answer in my opinion. It's to say nothing, but to appear like you've said something. And that's basically what it was. And so we continue here. And sorry, everyone, just pop back in here. All right. So yeah, so it was a political non-answer. I mean, I don't feel comfortable with that answer that they're going to be a strong proponent. It's kind of like when the Conservatives come out and you're like, well, where do they stand on lockdowns? Well, they kicked out a candidate in the Yukon for standing against vaccine mandates and lockdowns. So, I mean, actions speak louder than words. Where do they stand? I mean, they were asked, I believe, I can't remember her name, but rebel journalist, she's French, Lavoie. I think last name's Lavoie, but she asked like about the past there, and he basically said, well, he won't do it at a federal level, but he'll let the provinces do it. So if you think much is going to change, it's probably not. But that's some of the topics we're going to talk about here as we pull in Mr. Shino. Hopefully everything's good. How are you, Mr. Shino? Are we all clear?
That's working.
So if you'd like, we'll pull up the comments here.
Are you fucking kidding me?
All right, so we're just waiting for things to pan out. Sometimes that's the way it goes. Yeah, it's kind of the reality. So we're gonna see if I get a head nod from Mr. Shino here. If he can hear me, I'm not sure, but we'll have the questions at the bottom here, I think is what we're gonna do. He's having trouble hearing me. And so if he can see the questions, I will type them in as we go along, and it will kind of be maybe not the greatest, but we'll make sure that he gets his voice heard on these topics.
All right, so I'm going to do my best here. We're having a lot of technical difficulties, but so I see Greg Staley who said questions at the bottom. So Greg, I appreciate that. So you've decided to run as independent instead of with a party. Can you explain to our audience why that is? So my main reason for running as an independent is because I want to be able to represent my constituency. I don't want to be controlled or told the party line. If something is more to the left or more to the right, if it benefits the riding or if it benefits the country, that's what needs to be, essentially explored. So, when it comes down to it, right now is not a time for political left or right ideology. We need to get the country back on track. And we're far from that. I mean, it's like a snowball going downhill. First, we need to at least attempt to slow it down. I mean, we can't stop it at this point, but we need to at least attempt to slow it down. So any questions, by all means, I'll do my best to answer. And I do apologize about the technical difficulties. We have everything here, but for some reason, it's not working.
No problem. I've been in the same boat before. So here's number 2.
Vaccine mandates, passports. What is your position on the approach? Okay, so when it comes to health, it has to be personal. It can't be mandated by government. It can't be forced upon you. I mean, Jason Kenney even said we're not going to hold people down and stick a needle in them, but yet we are indirectly doing that. If you tell somebody that they can't go to work or they can't provide for their family unless they get vaccinated, well, you're not really giving them a choice if somebody's living paycheck to paycheck. So my take on the vaccine passports, I think, is irresponsible of the government to do something like that. Again, if it's on a legal standpoint, there is no case law for that. So the judges, if it ends up going to court, they won't even know what to base it off of. So it's very confusing for a lot of people. It's also causing a lot of damage to businesses, families, basically every single sector, every angle, every person. As far as the vaccines, so as far as the vaccines, again, people are not making informed decisions. And on the topic of informed decisions, I won't go too far off topic, but even with the candidates, a lot of people are not aware of who their candidates are because they do not know how to pull them up on the elections website. So it's there's a lot of work that needs to be done on every platform, every angle.
All right, number 3.
Yep.
Over there.
I can hear you a little bit.
Okay. So I don't know. Yeah, so number 3, your thoughts on the government's actions to combat COVID-19, the effect it has on mental health of Canadians, and how would you advocate for the mental health of constituents if elected in Brampton Centre?
Well, with mental health, I actually on the last interview, I actually called out Bell for that, because Bell says let's talk, but no one's talking. I mean, I attended 5 funerals in the last 2 years, and none of them were related to COVID. They were because of restrictions or reasons due to COVID, but not specifically that. One of them was a police officer who committed suicide. So I mean, whether it's a police officer, a family member, the mental health is not being taken into account, and that is a huge problem, right? It appears everything revolves around COVID right now. So, you get the vaccine and you're safe. Well, what about hamburgers? What about alcohol? What about heart conditions, diabetes, cholesterol, stress? Stress is a silent killer. But nobody's looking at any of that, right? So again, there's a lot of work that needs to be done from the government's point of view or from their perspective, but no one's taking action towards it, right? Everybody is just following whatever the parties say or whatever the agenda is, but no one is taking a stand. And the few people that are, they're essentially being muted or canceled. Somebody mentioned in the last interview they had sent an email asking for specific references as to what I'm saying. Well, if you Google the Great Barrington Declaration, you can go to their website and you will see more than 800,000 signatures with credentials, locations, addresses, universities, professors, and so on. Now, that's a substantial number. If they're not being taken into consideration, then people like you and me don't even stand a chance. Right? I don't have a doctorate or a PhD. I'm not an MD, but there are professors out there, PhDs and fellowships, that know what they're talking about, and we don't hear anything from them. All we hear is something from an appointed official. Mental health is on a dangerous rise. I mean, even before COVID, there were issues with mental health. Now, it's unprecedented, but no one's talking about it.
It's kind of it's the forgotten pandemic right now, because you're right, it's exploding. Kids are struggling, adults are struggling. I've talked about it on my show before, but I believe for 2 friends I know, we're up to 5 suicides or 6 suicides between the 2 of them that are completely unrelated to the virus itself, but they've lost friends nonetheless. So next question here is your thoughts on this is number 4, thoughts on the new Bereavement Association of Ontario rules around funerals. Is it okay in your book to prevent non-vaccinated people from attending a loved one's funeral? What would you propose as your approach to the funeral home situation?
They need to go back to normal. It's not going to last. They have to go back to normal. This has gone too far. Right. And one thing that I did mention in previous interviews, and I'll mention again, my mother's aunt from the U.S., a family friend discovered her, unconscious in her apartment, and when they tried to revive her, she was deceased. And this was at 11 in the morning during the pandemic, and we were notified. We couldn't do anything. We're trying to send them money. They're not accepting it. There's complications with the transfers. Because of the large amount. So at this point, it's 8:30 at night, and I picked up and just hit the border. And when I got there, I had a police report. I told the border agents, and at that time, I was actually with the Canadian military. So there's so many variables in play, and I'm just thinking she's rotting on the floor. So when it comes to these rules and funerals, I mean, the funeral home did not pick her up until we crossed the border with cash in hand. Then they were actually able to go and do their, due service and, get the process started. But with the funeral homes, I mean, we're allowed to go into LCBO. Interesting that is government. Canada Post hasn't been shut down. Again, it's a crown corporation. Amazon, with the incredible amount of revenue that they're generating, had several cases, again, never shut down. So, I don't understand why there's so much scrutiny happening to funeral homes for an end-of-life ceremony, but it doesn't apply to anything else. Costco, Walmart, and the list goes on. I mean, I call hypocrisy.
I think that's, I think I would generally agree with that take. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people allowed under one roof. We don't ask their vaccination status yet, but we do on the other cases. So question number 5 here, climate change. Basically, what is your position on climate change? Is the current approach of taxation on carbon the correct approach? You've discussed more LEED development is needed on your Twitter page. Please explain what that kind of means to the audience.
So this is an interesting topic. And what I've noticed actually with everyone else, they keep commenting or discussing the problems, but nobody's exploring solutions. Now, I'm on the road a lot, and I go from city to city, not just for politics, for business. And I did notice in London, Ontario, they have a lot of brand new subdivisions and townhomes. But these townhomes have solar power everywhere. All the roofs are slanted. They're covered in solar panels. Where the mailboxes are, there's a station that, even that is covered with solar panels. And that in itself, should be incentivized. A lot of farmers have solar panels on their farms, on their lands, on their barns. And this is something that I believe should be incentivized. They should be integrated into building homes. I mean, the very nature of solar panel is free energy. It's from the sun, and even that can be monetized, right? So it has to be incentivized. The government should mandate new builds, new construction, a proportion of them to be, dedicated to having these kinds of systems installed. It has been proven effective time and time over again. And the cost has dropped significantly since when it was first introduced. I mean, anybody now can purchase. If you're getting on a wholesale level, you can get a very good price on that, especially from the builders if they're purchasing that quantity. So, there are solutions out there, and the government, I'm pretty sure, is aware of it. Now, when it comes to the taxation, that's not going to solve anything. I mean, people have to pay for plastic bags. They still use them. People need to pay extra for certain, or they have these fines or penalties. I like to call them anyways. Even the batteries doesn't stop people from buying batteries, doesn't stop people from buying new tires. So even though you have to pay more money, it's a recycling fee, people still pay for it, right? Bags are being used, all the face masks and plastic. And, I even discussed with one person, not to give her airtime, but I will mention Greta Thunberg. She was, livid when it came to climate change. But where is she now with all the face masks and gloves that are being used? That's all plastic. Right. So again, it doesn't meet the agenda or the narrative, and this is what ends up happening.
All right, I think that's a good spot for that one. We'll kind of rapid fire these questions out. Housing affordability and foreign ownership. How would you advocate, if elected, for the people of Brampton-Centre when it comes to housing affordability? And what are your thoughts on foreign ownership?
Well, this is very interesting. Not just foreign ownership. There are elected officials that I know one has more than 30 properties in Mississauga. So that's a significant amount of ownership for an elected official. I'm not sure, how the income covers that as an elected official, but I'm sure the donations go far. But when it comes to the housing, it's impossible to get into the housing market as a first-time home buyer, let alone an immigrant or someone who's, fleeing to this country for a better life and a brighter future. So the government, again, needs to step in. Perfect example of someone stepping up and protecting their organization are the realtors. The realtors, regardless of experience or skills, when they sell a property, they make a significant amount of commission, and they have an agreement when it comes to percentages for the commission. Now, on the accountant's side, who hold the most weight, have the most responsibilities with legal forms and documents, they make a small set fee. So that's a perfect example of which organization goes to bat for its people and which one doesn't. So when it comes to housing and affordability and foreign ownership, the government 100% needs to step in and make sure that its citizens are being put first instead of foreigners that are, looking to invest. And if they are looking to invest, they should make it more strict, right? We're not saying, completely block them out, but incentivize the citizens of Canada to be able to purchase, especially first-time home buyers that are trying to start a family, or they're planning to upgrade, or expand on their family. There has to be options available. I mean, I just sold my property, and looking to buy one now. Everything's $1 million plus, so I'm gonna have to put a couple $100,000 down and carry the rest. I mean, for people who are working a regular job, minimum wage, they'll never be able to get into a property, let alone rent one. So 100% the government has to step in and make these changes. They are more than capable of doing that. It's just that they choose not to.
Just one more here. Sorry, everyone. We must adapt. We must adapt.
Nope,
Here we go.
I'm here. There was some noise in the background, so I had to mute it.
All good. Thoughts on Trudeau's temporary ban on foreign ownership? Is that enough? I guess would be the question. Oh.
The ban on foreign ownership.
So Trudeau's talked about this in his platform a little bit. He proposes a temporary ban of just 2 years. That's it.
Well, that's an interesting question, because even with the lockdowns, I'm not going to get into that, but you have to look at the legal standpoint. Why 2 years? Why that specific number? I wonder, are they projecting a minority government, and by law they're going to have to call another federal election in 2 years? So again, you got to look at specifically why 2 years? Why not 5 years, 10 years? Is it in their interest maybe to ban the foreign ownership for 2 years and then re-explore? There are questions that are not being asked, and at the same time there are questions that are not being answered. I think it's good that they're banning, but I think it's a bit too extreme. And with our current government, everything's to the extreme. You're either far left or far right. We didn't say ban it completely, and we didn't say let them run wild and free and rampant, but you should have some kind of structure for people that are purchasing as foreign investors, and level the playing field for new home buyers. There has to be a middle ground, and it's just not being explored.
All right, number 7. Can move on here. All right, corruption. How would you propose to hold the government accountable as an independent in Parliament? What kind of ideas would you put forward to combat political corruption as an independent representing the constituents of Brampton-Centre?
Well, see, that's an interesting point of view, and this has been up for debate many times. When it comes to corruption, you need transparency, and especially with charities, when the money is donated or to not-for-profits, or if it's a grant provided by the government wants to see what that money was used for, specifically how many, and I quote, lives changed, or lives affected, or people affected. So how many people did you reach out, touch? How many lives were improved or affected because of that donation, grant, or charitable contribution? And if they show progress, then they will receive more money from the government. So when it comes to corruption, there has to be transparency. Passing a motion for a specific process to be put into place, and have the members of Parliament vote on it, and then you would know specifically who has something to hide and who doesn't. Well, not yet, but elected officials. I was about to include myself, but elected officials. The purpose of them going to the House of Commons is to represent their constituency. It's not for them. It's for their riding, okay? And a lot of them seem to think it's the other way around. But there has to be transparency with how the money is being spent, where it went, what came out of it, So people know, and it's not just my money or your money, it's everyone's money. This is taxpayer funded. With all the money that has left the country, did people have any objection to it, or were they okay? Did anybody ask or even consider the opinions and thoughts of the citizens that are paying into this? So as far as corruption, I believe in a minority government with more independence and true independence with no bias, as myself, would improve the country coast to coast.
All right, moving on. Question number 8. COVID recovery. Oh, there we go. Maybe we'll do it that way. COVID recovery. On Twitter, you say that the answer to a COVID recovery is simple. Can you kind of explain and expand on your thoughts on that, of what it will take to recover from COVID? You talked about healthy eating, exercise, things like this.
With COVID recovery, you know what, not just COVID recovery, any recovery, first and foremost is the mental state. The mental state has to be 100%. If somebody is stressed or they're mentally busy or clouded with their day-to-day life, it doesn't matter if it's COVID or anything else. It will destroy you. So when it comes to COVID specifically, again, I'm not a doctor or a professor, but and I shouldn't be speaking on it, but when it comes to health in general, no one is doing the basic fundamentals. No one. It's something like cleaning dishes at home, right? You need to be able to clean your dishes in order to eat off of them. So no one is doing the basics, going for exercises, practicing, meditation, eating healthy, drinking water. How many people are deficient with certain vitamins and minerals? Nobody knows. Nobody cares. COVID seems to be the end all be all. You get the vaccine and that's it. Everything is good. Life goes on. Well, life doesn't go on. So when it comes to the recovery and the healthy eating, it's a lifestyle. And everyone's lifestyle for the past year and a half has been to stay home, ignore everyone, don't go to family, wash your hands, mask up, and get vaccinated. Well, if that's the advice that medical professionals are giving, then they're doing everyone a disservice, and I've always promoted health right from 2007 when I got into the field. And I've worked with frozen shoulder patients through a clinic that I assist at. And even them, after the procedure, they have up to 90% mobility, but they are still instructed that they have to stretch, they have to exercise, and go outdoors, get some oxygen. Nobody's doing that. Everyone's staying home, masking up. Like we're going around in circles here. So we need to expect more, not just from others, but from ourselves. And we can't hold people accountable. If you want to protect your family, stay away from them or mask up or get vaccinated. You have to have people informed so they can make the decision. And because then you're telling people that they don't know. I mean, you're adding insult to injury, right? By telling people they have to do this, they have to do that. You're saying that people can't think for themselves. And I think that's absurd.
All right, moving on here, number 9, freedom of thought. Oh, let's get that off. There we go. So freedom of thought, how would you as an independent advocate for freedom of speech in Parliament? What is your approach for digital censorship of big tech, the place where most of our public discourse takes place?
A few things. If you can actually put that up there, I want to tackle it one by one.
Yep.
So freedom of speech, running as an independent is right off the bat freedom of speech, because I'm not controlled. Nobody tells me what to do, what to say. I basically act just out of my own pure opinion, and hopefully voice the constituency's concerns. So freedom of speech as an independent right off the bat, I have that opportunity. Advocating for free speech in Parliament, I would encourage a lot more individuals to get involved with public office, to understand how elections works, how parliamentary processes work, and just getting more people motivated and encouraged to get involved, because a lot of people are discouraged. I mean, if you don't align with the parties, or if your social media has a picture that might not align, then you can't run as a candidate. You do have to pay into it with donations in order to even get nominated. So, there's a lot of restrictions for people to get their voice out and heard without any bias, without any muzzle, essentially. So the freedom of speech is under attack. You mentioned also, I saw, with the big tech censorship. That is a huge, huge problem. And I do look to our neighbors to the south, because they have actually now implemented and imposed through the government fines for big tech companies that do any kind of censorship or, shadow banning, which I do respect and I appreciate. And the government has to look out for the best interest of its people. It has to be like that. I don't care about big tech companies and corporations. We are working for the people, and it has to be like that. The place where most of us, and again, that's another problem, right? Like with Canada, there's been talks of state-issued media licenses, which we won't be able to have this conversation if that goes through. And some people say, oh, Canada's becoming a dictatorship. Well, it has been for a while, but it wasn't a singular dictatorship or a one-person dictatorship. It was a party dictatorship, right? Now, whether it's blue or red, that's still a dictatorship. Like this kind of government structure, parliamentary structure, is not effective. And we've seen that time and time over again. It has to be changed. And the only way for that to happen is for more people to get involved. It's strength in numbers.
All right, moving on. Number 10 here. We'll skip that. There. Farmers. How would you advocate for farmers? Maybe I'm not sure the geographic layout of Brampton Centre, so I'm not sure how much that applies to your riding, but would you advocate for an exemption of the carbon tax for farmers? Because I will finish it out. This is something I've heard from farmers that is one of the biggest hurdles to affordable farming here in Canada.
100%. I would advocate for an exemption on the carbon tax for farmers. There is no doubt about that. I mean, the very fact and nature that we have to argue and protest in favor of farmers tells you how lost we are as a government, and as just the entire world. I mean, and not just Canada, India. There are a number of farmers worldwide that are basically just neglected. And I think it's not only irresponsible, it's disgusting, right? Farmers have to be protected at all costs. They're farmers, they farm. No farmers, no food. And I do respect the Indian community. Actually, I've seen a lot of their vehicles that have these stickers on them, that they've taken it on a global proportion. And that really sends the message home. It gets the voices heard. But more needs to be done on the government side. Right now, the citizens have taken it upon themselves. They put stickers on their vehicles and they're getting the word out. I apologize about that.
All good.
I'll be sure to lock myself in my office the next time we have to do this. But no, when it does come to farmers, they have to be taken care of. They have to be incentivized again. I mean, they've going back to the solar panels. They do that. They have all the solar panels up, so they do their part to help. But when it comes to the government, they don't. They neglect them. So again, there are many options, many ways that we can explore and go down that will benefit not just the farmers, but the government. But there has to be a dialogue started where people can come to the table, sit down and have a conversation. And that is just not happening.
Okay, so we got last questions and closing remarks here, but is there any freedom left in Canada? This quote from your video there, you just explain your video on this topic and your personal views, and kind of expound from there for our audience.
Well, is there any freedom left in Canada? That's a good question. And it's one that I truly am not sure what answer to provide, because I myself find myself at a crossroads. I mean, a child in a third world country that jumps and hangs off a bus has more freedom than we do. You can't say certain things now. You can't do certain things without somebody getting offended. you're constantly being told what to do, where to go, when to do it. One thing that I found completely ridiculous was when they put the fences up around, I believe it was the cherry blossoms in Toronto. You are fencing off nature because of a pandemic, and all that did was cause more people to cluster around the fences in close proximity, right? Which makes absolutely no sense to me. So that's not freedom. Telling people that they're going to lose their job if they don't get vaccinated, that's not freedom at all. I mean, that's coercion. You're intimidating people now. You don't get the vaccination, you get fired. That's ridiculous. And then another thing, I mean, everywhere there is problem after problem, but this is where people need to hold the government accountable and just say no. Just don't do certain things. And I'm not advocating for people to break the law, but if you want to go for a walk at 11 o'clock at night in a well-lit park like Chinguacousy Park, you should be able to. And the other day I was there 5 minutes past 10, and I'm being told by a security guard that if I don't leave the premises, I'm going to get fined for trespassing. Now, that was never the case growing up. We were able to do that. I mean, even old folks, they're very early in the morning walking, doing the perimeter walk or run 5:30 in the morning, but they can't do that now until 6. So, I mean, is it martial law? I mean, we're heading in that direction, right? And you have people that, that are made fun of for saying, oh, it's conspiracy. Well, that's not conspiracy. Chinguacousy Park never had a time limit. They do now. And this is the problem I find, that the government every year, every week, every month, they inch towards taking more and more away. And at what point are people going to say no and stop until it affects you? I mean, it doesn't affect you until it does, and by then it's too late.
All right, and closing thoughts here. Why should someone vote for you, Ronni Shino, in Brampton-Centre? What's the, I guess, elevator pitch to get yourself elected here?
Well, for me, it's very simple. A vote for me is a vote for rights and freedoms. I'm standing up for what's right. Many others are not. Many other candidates choose not to. Brampton-Centre specifically, because I live here. I grew up here. I went to high school here, elementary school. I lived, I loved, I lost, I had business here. So for me, this is home. And when your home is falling apart, or when it's threatened, or when the roof is leaking, you do what you can to repair it, to fix it. And that's essentially, where I'm coming from, is I see an opportunity for me to help the people that I've grown up with, that have taught me, that have lived with me, that I have friends. It's a chance, an opportunity for me, a duty to serve that riding, that constituency. I mean, these are friends and family and neighbors, and they mean a lot to me. And when I see that they're threatened, I will stand up and defend them. There is no question about that. There's no hidden agenda. There is no bias. Growing up, we were never looking at others as if they're a different color, race, religion, or creed. I had friends from all backgrounds. I still remember by first name and last name exactly who they were. Thank you. We will. Yes. Sure. Well, and again, we never had that. I never saw my friend is black, my friend is Asian, my friend is white. We were never divided like that. We were always happy. We had actual problems, not whose race is what, whose religion is what, right? So again, with me, there's no division, there's no bias. Everybody knows I've been in the health industry for a while, even with the gyms. They know me, they know my name. It's love and peace for everybody. I have no issue with anyone. There is no division. I mean, even, I don't know if I have any enemies, but, even then, it's always love and care for all. I wouldn't wish any harm on anyone. But when people, not just my family, but when people that are in my house, and Brampton-Centre is my home, just as is Canada, when they're threatened, I will defend them.
All right. I thank you for coming on. I think it's a good introduction to you as a candidate. I think we cover a wide array of topics. So thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck as you close out the election here and the last final sprint in Brampton-Centre. Thanks, Mr. Shino.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That's Ronni Shino, the candidate for Brampton-Centre. Appreciate him coming on. I think he carries himself pretty well. He's out there in Brampton-Centre. So if you like what you heard from Mr. Shino and you believe he's the best candidate for your area, that best represents your values, consider giving him your vote. And thank you so much for joining us. we will be, I just want to close out on this topic. I will be out and about all weekend this weekend. I'm at an event tomorrow night at a undisclosed location, so that there'll be a live look, or not a live on that one. I am, the crazy part, I'm out of data. I've got 12 gigs of data. I've been covering so many live events that I'm out of data. So Saturday, somebody's going to hotspot me some data, or Sunday, somebody's going to hotspot me some data. I will be bringing you live coverage of an all KW, Kitchener-Waterloo region People's Party of Candidates gathering, and kind of be bringing the live coverage from there. Hopefully get some questions in. But another thing I wanted to bring up, I will be trying to do a game show. If you want to have your voice heard on this, be a part of this game show, I want to get a video out before the election, hopefully no later than Tuesday, Wednesday next week. But here is the basic premise. Here we go, pull it up. Whose platform is it anyway? Will Canadians be able to tell the difference between Liberals and Conservatives? And the premise of the game is, obviously, I've been breaking down the platform of both Conservatives and Liberals. We're going to ask some questions on this topic and see what the reactions are, if people are actually able to distinguish the two platforms without knowing beforehand. So everyone, again, thank you for joining us. If you can help, divergemedia.ca. We take donations. We also have merch. And we thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.